Mina Kim's hands shook as she clutched the divorce papers, her knuckles white against the crisp legal documents. The Seoul airport buzzed with late-night travelers. But she felt completely alone in the crowd. Her left eye throbbed with a dull ache, the purple bruise hidden beneath concealer that couldn't quite mask 3 years of hell. "You worthless piece of trash." Taiho's voice still echoed in her mind from their final fight. "You think you can just leave me? I own you." But tonight was different. Tonight, while her controlling husband lay unconscious in his own vomit, reeking of soju and rage, Mina had grabbed her emergency bag and run. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the gate, constantly glancing over her shoulder. Even now, part of her expected to feel Taiho's iron grip on her wrist, dragging her back to their apartment prison. The boarding pass trembled in her sweaty palm. Flight 447 to Bizen, her sister city, her sanctuary. She'd memorized the gate number weeks ago, planning this escape during the endless nights when sleep wouldn't come. Gate to 3B. But in her panic, exhaustion clouding her judgment, she stumbled toward what looked like the right terminal. The gate area seemed strangely quiet. Only a handful of passengers waited, all wearing similar dark clothing. Something felt off, but Mina's adrenaline-soaked brain couldn't process the warning signs. She just needed to get on that plane, needed to disappear before Taiho woke up and realized his victim had finally grown claws. "Now boarding," announced a voice that sounded too crisp, too professional for a standard domestic flight. Me-not joined. The line of passengers, her legs unsteady, the walkway stretched longer than expected, and the aircraft door looked different somehow, sleeker, more advanced. But fear drove her forward. Fear of staying meant fear of dying, and she'd rather face the unknown than spend another day as Taiho's punching bag. The moment she stepped inside, Mina knew something was wrong. This wasn't like any commercial aircraft she'd ever seen. The walls appeared to be made of some kind of polished metal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The seats looked more like something from a luxury space movie, sleek, ergonomic. And they actually moved to accommodate her body. She sat down. "What the hell?" she whispered, running her fingers along the armrest that felt warm and responsive to her touch. "First time on one of these?" asked a deep, calm voice beside her. Mina turned to see a tall Korean man settling into the seat next to her. He wore a midnight blue uniform that looked military, but unlike anything she'd seen before. Gold insignia decorated his collar, and his name tag read Commander Han Sol Park in both Korean and English. His face was strong, weathered, with intelligent dark eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed facade. I think I'm on the wrong flight," Mina stammered, instinctively touching her bruised cheek. Commander Park's expression softened with understanding. "Rough night?" he asked gently, his voice carrying no judgment, only concern. Something about his tone made Mina's carefully built walls crumble. "Something like that," she whispered. Unable to meet his eyes, the aircraft began to move, but it felt different from any takeoff she'd experienced. No rumbling engines, no violent acceleration. Instead, there was a smooth, almost silent descent that made her stomach flutter. She pressed her face to the window, expecting to see Seoul's lights falling away below. Instead, she saw stars, not the distant pinpricks visible from a normal airplane, but brilliant, clear stars that seemed impossibly close. The curvature of Earth spread out beneath them, a blue marble suspended in infinite black space. "Oh my God!" Mina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God! What is this?" Commander Park leaned forward, his voice gentle but serious. "Miss Kim, you've boarded the wrong plane. But perhaps it's exactly where you need to be." Through the window, massive shapes moved between the stars, ships, dozens of them, sleek and powerful, orbiting Earth like silent guardians. Some were enormous, the size of city blocks, while others darted between them like metallic dolphins. They bore no resemblance to anything in the history books. Their designs both beautiful and unmistakably alien in origin. This is impossible. Mina breathed, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. This can't be real. 3 years ago, your husband began receiving payments from an offshore account. Commander Park said quietly. Money to keep you isolated, to crush your spirit, to make sure you never reached your potential. He wasn't just abusive, Mina. He was working for them. Mina's voice cracked. Commander Park gestured toward the window, where the impossible fleet continued its silent dance round Earth. The ones who've been watching us, the ones who fear what humanity might become if we're allowed to grow freely. Mina stared at the commander, then back at the ships. Her world reshaping itself round this new reality, the woman who'd fled in. Terra was about to discover that her nightmare had been just the beginning of something much larger. The docking process felt like something out of a dream. Mina pressed her face against the window as their sleek transport approached what looked like a floating city made of crystal and metal. The space station stretched for kilometers in every direction, its surface covered in pulsing lights that seemed to breathe like a living organism. What is this place? Mina gasped as the airlock sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Commander Park helped her to her feet, his steady hand on her elbow as her legs wobbled like a newborn colt. Welcome to Aegis Station, Earth's first line of defense against something most people don't know exists. The moment they stepped through the airlock, Mina felt like she'd entered another world. The corridors were wide and gleaming, with walls that seemed to shimmer between silver and deep blue. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star charts and data streams that made her head spin. But what really caught her attention were the people. Korean men and women in advanced uniforms moved through the halls with purpose and confidence. Their clothing looked like something from a sci-fi movie, form-fitting suits that seemed to glow with their own inner light, embedded with small devices that beeped and flashed. Some wore helmets with transparent visors. Others carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. How long has this been here? Mina whispered, her voice echoing in the vast space. Aegis Station has been operational for 5 years, Commander Park explained as they walked. But the program started much earlier. We've been preparing for this day since the first signals came from deep space. They passed through a section where technicians worked on massive robots that looked like metallic giants. The machines stood 3 meters tall, their surfaces covered in armor plating that shifted and moved like living skin. Red sensor rays swept back and forth, scanning everything in their path. Defense mechs, Commander Park noted, following her gaze. Each one is controlled by a human pilot through neural interface. The aliens have their own war machines. But they've never faced anything like these. Mina's engineering mind kicked into overdrive, analyzing the technology around her. Everything seemed decades ahead of what she'd known on Earth. Energy conduits ran along the walls like glowing veins, and the air itself felt charged with electricity. 3 years ago, we made contact with the Vanguard Empire. Commander Park continued as they entered a lift that moved so smoothly Mina couldn't tell if they were going up or down. A collection of alien species that consider humanity a threat. They've been infiltrating our society, placing agents to monitor and control us. The lift opened onto an observation deck that took Mina's breath away. Through massive transparent walls, she could see Earth turning slowly below, but that wasn't what made her gasp. Ships moved between the stars, not human ships, but something else entirely. They were elegant and terrifying, shaped like living creatures with wings that seemed to ripple through space. Those are Vanguard scouts, Commander Park said grimly. They've been watching us for decades, studying our behavior, learning our weaknesses. Mina's blood ran cold as the implications hit her. Agents, your husband Taiho received payments from an offshore account we've been tracking for 2 years. Each payment came after he successfully broke down your confidence or stopped you from pursuing your research. Commander Park's voice was gentle but firm. He wasn't just abusive, Mina. He was assigned to suppress your potential. The words hit her like a physical blow. All those times Taiho had called her stupid, worthless, a failure. All those moments when he destroyed her projects, deleted her research, convinced her that her dreams were foolish. It hadn't been random cruelty. It had been a mission. But why me? She whispered, her legs suddenly weak. Commander Park led her to a nearby bench, his expression serious. Because you're brilliant, Mina. Your work in quantum computing. Your ability to see patterns others miss. The Vanguard identified you as a threat 5 years ago. They've been trying to neutralize you ever since. They continued through the station, passing training facilities where soldiers practiced with weapons that fired beams of pure energy in one room. Pilots sat in chairs connected to cables and wires there, eyes closed as they mentally controlled spacecraft through simulated battles. The technology was incredible, but it was the people that impressed me most. Everyone moved with purpose, working together like parts of a perfect machine. Finally, they reached the briefing room. The space was dominated by a massive holographic display that showed the solar system in 3 dimensions. Red dots marked alien positions at the edge of their territory, while blue dots represented human defenses. The scale was staggering. Hundreds of ships on both sides, preparing for a conflict that most of humanity didn't even know was coming. Captain Yunji Choi stood at the center of the display. A woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform bore more insignia than Commander Park's, and when she spoke, everyone listened. Miss Kim, Captain Choi said, turning to face her, we've been waiting for you to join us. Your research into quantum entanglement communication could change everything. Mina felt overwhelmed. I don't understand. I'm nobody special. I'm just a woman who got on the wrong plane. Captain Choi smiled, but it was a warrior smile, fierce and determined. That's exactly what makes you dangerous to them. Other species evolved predictable behavioral patterns. They follow rules. Think in straight lines, do what they're told. But humans, we're chaotic, creative, adaptable. What makes us difficult to control makes us impossible to defeat. The holographic display shifted, showing recordings of alien creatures. They were beautiful in their own way. Tall, graceful beings with elongated limbs and faces that seemed almost angelic. But their eyes held a coldness that made me not shiver. The Vanguard Empire has conquered dozens of worlds. Captain Choi continued. They study each species, learn their patterns, then exploit their weaknesses. But they've never faced anything like humanity before. We don't follow their rules. Mina stared at the display, her mind racing. Her background in quantum computing, the passion Taiho had beaten out of her with his constant criticism and control, suddenly seemed incredibly valuable again. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of the old excitement, the thrill of solving impossible problems. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice stronger than it had been in years. Commander Park placed a hand on her shoulder. "Help us save the world. Mina, help us show them that humanity doesn't break. We adapt." The quantum lab buzzed with energy that made Mina's skin tingle. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens flickering with equations that seemed to dance and shift like living things. Dr. Jamin Lee. A thin man with glasses that projected holographic data directly onto his retinas welcomed her with nervous excitement. "Ms. Kim, your theoretical work on quantum entanglement networks is legendary in our field," he said, his hands shaking slightly as he pulled up her old research files. "We've been trying to crack the communication barrier for months," Mina said, at the holographic displays showing her own work, papers she'd written years ago before Taiho had convinced her they were worthless. Seeing them now, displayed like precious artifacts, made her chest tight with emotion. "I thought all of this was destroyed. Taiho made me delete everything. We recovered your files from university servers before they could be wiped," Dr. Lee explained. "Your husband tried to erase your work, but we were watching. We saved what we could." Within hours, Mina found herself completely absorbed in the most complex puzzle of her life. The quantum communication ray was massive, a crystalline structure that pulsed with blue light, connected to dozens of satellites positioned round Earth. But something was wrong with the frequency patterns. "The resonance is all wrong," she explained, her fingers flying across holographic controls that responded to her touch like magic. Mathematical equations flowed round her in 3 dimensions, and she could actually reach out and manipulate them with her hands. "You're thinking like soldiers, but we need to think like survivors," Dr. Lee frowned at his calculations. "What do you mean?" "Military thinking is linear, point A to point B, cause and effect. But survival thinking is adaptive. When a cornered animal fights, it doesn't follow rules." Mina's eyes blazed with the passion that had been dormant for years. "We need to make our communications unpredictable, chaotic. Every message should be different. Every frequency should shift randomly." She worked like a woman possessed, her mind finally free to operate at full capacity. The station's quantum computers responded to her commands, processing calculations at speeds that would have taken Earth's best supercomputers years to complete. Round her, other scientists watched in amazement as patterns emerged from the chaos. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Lee, staring at the swirling data streams. "It's like watching a living organism think." Meanwhile, in the station's communication center, technicians monitored signals from across the solar system. The massive dish rays on Earth's surface picked up alien transmissions, not the random background denoise of space, but deliberate, coordinated messages between ships. Lieutenant Yu Jin-han, a young woman with cybernetic implants that glowed softly beneath her skin, worked frantically to decode the alien language. Her fingers danced across multiple keyboards simultaneously, her enhanced nervous system processing information at superhuman speeds. "Commander Park, you need to see this," she called out, her voice tight with tension. The alien communications were accelerating. Ships that had been stationed at the edge of the solar system were now moving inward, their formation changing from observation to attack patterns. But more disturbing were the messages being sent to Earth itself, to specific locations, specific individuals. "They're contacting their agents," Lieutenant Han reported, "including one in Seoul, South Korea." Commander Park's face went pale. "Taiho." The transmission logs showed desperate communications from Earth Mina's husband had been sending. Increasingly frantic messages reporting that his target had vanished. The alien responses were clear: "Find her or face consequences. The timeline is accelerating," Commander Park said grimly. "They're not willing to wait anymore." In the quantum lab, Mina was deep in the zone. Her consciousness expanded across the entire communication network. She could feel the pulse of every satellite, every relay station, every quantum entanglement point. The system was responding to her like a musical instrument, and she was composing a symphony of chaos. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the artificial gravity fluctuated as the station's defensive systems activated. Mina looked up from her work, her hands still glowing with quantum energy. "What's happening?" she asked. But Dr. Lee was already running toward the emergency panels. Lieutenant Eugene Han burst into the lab, her cybernetic implants sparking with overloaded data. "Commander Park needs you both in the war room. They're coming." The war room was chaos. Holographic displays showed space round Earth, and dozens of new contacts were appearing. Alien ships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They were beautiful and terrible, their crystalline hulls reflecting starlight like living jewels. But their intent was unmistakable. 67 vessels and counting, reported Captain Choi, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the threat. "They're maintaining position just outside our defensive perimeter." A new display activated, showing an alien face that was both beautiful and utterly inhuman. The creature's features were delicate, almost ethereal, but its eyes held the coldness of deep space. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of an empire that had conquered worlds. "People of Earth," the alien said, its words translated by the station's computers. "You harbor a dangerous individual. The female designated Mina Kim has escaped our control protocols. Return her to us, and your world will be spared. Refuse and face the consequences of defying the Vanguard Empire." The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. All eyes turned to Mina, who stood frozen as the reality of the situation hit her. The entire planet was being threatened because of her. Commander Park looked at Mina grimly. "They want you specifically. Your neural patterns, your creative thinking. It represents everything they fear about humanity." Mina felt the familiar terror of being hunted, the same feeling she'd experienced every day with Taiho. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't alone. Round her stood dozens of human soldiers, scientists, and engineers who were willing to fight for our freedom. "I won't go back," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I won't let them turn me into what Taiho tried to make me. Broken, controlled, afraid." The alien ships began moving closer, their weapon systems powering up with energy signatures that made the station sensors scream warnings. But Mina felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of a challenge. The excitement of a problem that needed solving. "Then let's show them what they should really be afraid of," she said, turning back toward the quantum lab. "Let's show them what happens when humanity fights back." The first wave of alien fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. Energy beams the color of molten silver slammed into Aegis station shields, causing the entire structure to shudder. Mina gripped the quantum control interface as the lights flickered round her, her heart pounding with the rhythm of the battle. "Alarms, shields at 70%. Lieutenant Han called out, her cybernetic implants glowing red as she processed incoming data faster than any human should be able to. "They're targeting our communication rays through the lab's transparent walls." Mina could see the alien fleet in all its terrifying glory. The Vanguard ships moved like a school of predatory fish, their crystalline hulls reflecting the explosions of human defensive fire. They were beautiful and deadly, each vessel the size of a city block, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "Mina, we need those adaptive protocols now," Dr. Lee shouted over the chaos, his holographic displays showing system after system go and offline. Mina's fingers flew across the quantum interface, her mind racing through possibilities. The aliens were using predictive algorithms to target their weapons, sophisticated computer systems that calculated where human ships would be based on their previous movements. But Mina had learned something during her years with Taiho that no alien computer could understand. "They're using predictive algorithms," she shouted over the battle alarms, her voice cutting through the noise. But I grew up adapting to chaos. She'd learned to read Taiho's moods, to sense when his anger was building, to change her behavior in ways that might save her from another beating. It was a skill born from terror and desperation, the ability to be unpredictable when survival depended on it. Now she applied that same chaotic thinking to the defense network, instead of following standard military protocols. She made the human ships dance through space like leaves in a hurricane. One moment they were advancing information, the next they were scattering in all directions, regrouping in patterns that made no tactical sense. "What are you doing?" Captain Choi demanded, watching her carefully planned battle strategies dissolve into apparent chaos. "Surviving," Mina replied, her consciousness expanding across the entire defense network. She could feel every ship, every weapon, every sensor array as if they were extensions of her own body. They studied our military tactics, our technology, our psychology, but they never studied what it means to be hunted. The alien targeting systems, designed to predict logical military movements, began to malfunction. Their energy beams fired at empty space where human ships should have been, while the actual vessels appeared from impossible angles. Mina's quantum firewalls shifted unpredictably, creating interference patterns that scrambled the alien sensors. A massive Vanguard battleship, its hull covered in weapon ports that glowed like angry eyes, fired a concentrated beam that should have destroyed 3 human cruisers. Instead, Mina's adaptive protocols had moved the ships into a formation that turned their own shields into a lens, focusing the alien energy back at its source. Direct hit on the enemy flagship. Lieutenant Hong reported, her voice filled with disbelief. "They just shot themselves." Commander Park appeared at Mina's side, his steady presence anchoring her as she pushed her abilities to their limits. Round them, the quantum lab had become a command center unlike anything in human history. Holographic displays showed the battle from every angle, while Mina's consciousness flowed through the defense network like electricity through copper wire. "The aliens are adapting to our adaptations," Commander Park observed, watching the enemy formation shift. "Their computer systems are learning from our chaos. Then we need to be more chaotic." Mina replied, her eyes blazing with the same intensity that had once terrified Taiho. She was no longer the broken woman who'd fled Seoul. She was becoming something new, something dangerous. Dr. Lee worked frantically to amplify Mina's innovations across the entire fleet. His quantum computers processed her chaotic algorithms, spreading them to every human vessel in the solar system. Suddenly, Earth's defense network was no longer a military force. It was a living organism that thought and moved like a wild animal. The alien ships, despite their superior technology and numbers, began to falter. Their perfect formations broke apart as they tried to target enemies that refused to behave predictably. Energy beams designed to destroy organized fleets found themselves firing at ghosts, while human weapons struck from directions that shouldn't have been possible. "Their formation is breaking," Lieutenant Han reported, her voice filled with amazement. "They can't adapt to our changes fast enough." Mina watched through the defense network's sensors as alien ships began to retreat, their elegant formations dissolving into confused clusters. The Vanguard had studied human combat, human technology, human psychology, but they'd never faced a human who'd learned to survive by being unpredictable. One alien vessel, larger than the others and covered in golden armor that seemed to pulse with its own light, held its position even as the fleet withdrew. This was clearly the command ship, and Mina could sense its powerful scanning beams focused directly on Aegis Station. "They're trying to analyze our tactics," she realized. "They want to understand what we did so they can counter it next time." Without hesitation, Mina reached out through the quantum network and touched the alien ship's computer systems for a moment. She felt the vast intelligence of the Vanguard Empire. Cold, logical, ancient beyond human comprehension, but also rigid, predictable, and able to truly understand the chaotic spark that made humans dangerous. She planted a virus in their systems, not a destructive program, but something far more dangerous. She gave them a taste of pure human chaos, a piece of code that would make their computers think like abuse survivors, like people who'd learned to be unpredictable to stay alive. The alien command ship's lights flickered as its systems struggled to process the impossible data. Then, slowly, majestically, it began to retreat with the rest of the fleet. Mina collapsed into Commander Park's arms, her consciousness finally returning to her own body. Around her, the quantum lab erupted in cheers as human ships reported successful defense of the solar system. The Vanguard commander's final transmission echoed through the station, its voice carrying a note of something that might have been respect. "We underestimated your species. This will not happen again," as the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Mina realized that the woman who'd fled in terror just days ago had become humanity's secret weapon. She'd turned her greatest weakness, the ability to survive chaos, into Earth's greatest strength. The war was far from over, but for the first time in years, Mina felt truly free. 3 months later, Mina stood in the observatory deck of Aegis Station, watching Earth turn slowly below like a blue marble suspended in infinite darkness. The planet looked so peaceful from here, with no sign of the cosmic war that had nearly destroyed it. White clouds swirled over the continents, and she could see the lights of cities twinkling like stars on the night side. Her reflection in the transparent aluminum showed a woman transformed. Gone was the broken, frightened person who'd fled Seoul with a black eye and trembling hands. In her place stood Lieutenant Minokim, wearing the midnight blue uniform of Earth's Defense Corps. The silver insignia on her collar marked her as a specialist in quantum warfare, a title that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "The lawyers finally processed everything," she said to her reflection, holding up a tablet displaying legal documents. "Divorce finalized, Taiho's assets frozen. The bastard won't be hurting anyone else." The investigation into her ex-husband had revealed a network of alien collaborators spanning dozens of countries. Taiho wasn't just an abuser. He was part of a systematic program to identify and neutralize humanity's most creative minds. The Vanguard Empire had been preparing for invasion by crippling Earth's potential from within. Any regrets about boarding the wrong plane? Asked a familiar voice behind her. Mina turned to see Commander Park approaching, his own uniform bearing no insignia. The successful defense of Earth had earned him a promotion to Admiral, though he still preferred his old title. In his hands, he carried 2 cups of something that smelled like coffee but tasted like liquid starlight, a beverage the station's replicators had created by analyzing alien food technology. "Best mistake I ever made," Mina replied, accepting the steaming cup. The warmth spread through her hands, a comfort that reminded her she was truly alive and free. Through the observatory's massive windows, she could see the construction yards where humanity's new fleet was taking shape. Sleek warships that combined human creativity with recovered alien technology floated in the void, their hulls gleaming with quantum armor that shifted colors like oil on water. Robot construction crews worked round the clock, their mechanical arms precise and tireless as they assembled weapons that would make the Vanguard think twice about returning. "The Jupiter colonies are reporting strange readings," Admiral Park said, his expression growing serious. "Energy signatures that match Vanguard technology. But smaller, scout ships, maybe." Mina nodded, her tactical mind already analyzing the implications. The aliens hadn't given up. They were just being more careful. The frontal assault had failed, so now they were trying stealth and infiltration. But humanity was ready for them. Captain Choi wants to see you, Admiral Park continued. New mission parameters. They made their way through the station's corridors, past training rooms where new recruits learned to pilot the defense mechs. The giant robots had been upgraded with Mina's chaos algorithms, making them unpredictable opponents that could adapt to any enemy strategy. She watched through the viewing windows as pilots practiced combat maneuvers, their mechanical suits dancing through the air like deadly ballerinas. Captain Choi's office overlooked the main hangar, where squadrons of fighter craft prepared for patrol missions. The older woman looked up from her holographic displays as they entered, her silver hair catching the light from the star charts floating round her desk. Lieutenant Kim. Captain Choi said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd spent decades defending humanity. We've detected Vanguard activity near the Jupiter colonies. Long-range sensors are picking up cloaked vessels conducting what appear to be reconnaissance missions. The holographic display shifted to show the outer solar system, where Jupiter's moons glowed like tiny pearls around the gas giant. Red markers indicated the suspected alien positions, moving in patterns that suggested they were mapping human defenses. They're testing us, Mina realized, studying the alien movement patterns, looking for weaknesses in our outer perimeter. Exactly. Captain Choi confirmed. Your expertise is needed. We're assembling a task force to investigate stealth ships using your quantum camouflage technology. Mina felt a thrill of excitement mixed with determination. This was what she'd trained for, what she'd been preparing for during the long months since the battle. The woman who'd once been afraid of her own shadow was now a specialist in fighting an enemy that had conquered dozens of worlds. What about the colonists? She asked, thinking of the thousands of humans who'd chosen to make their homes in the Jupiter system. 3 million people across 15 settlements. Admiral Park replied grimly. If the Vanguard is planning something, they're sitting ducks out there. Mina looked out at the stars, no longer seeing distant points of light, but a battlefield where humanity's future would be. Decided, the marriage that had nearly destroyed her had actually prepared her for this moment. She'd learned to fight impossible odds, to adapt under pressure, to find strength in the darkest places. Ready for deployment. Captain, she said, her voice steady and confident. Daughters, Earth's hidden fleet prepared for humanity's next chapter among the stars. Mina realized the truth that had been hidden from her for so long. She hadn't escaped her toxic marriage by accident. She'd been rescued by destiny itself. Every moment of pain, every night of fear, every day of learning to survive chaos had been preparing her for this role, the woman who'd once cowered in fear now stood ready to defend her entire species. The quantum communication rays hummed with her innovations, the defense networks pulsed with her chaotic algorithms, and the new ships carried weapons designed from her understanding of survival. And somewhere in the depths of space, the aliens, who'd tried to control humanity through fear and oppression, were learning a hard lesson. They'd studied human technology, human psychology, human military tactics. But they'd never understood the most dangerous thing about humanity, their refusal to stay broken. The stars waited, full of promise and peril. But Mina was no longer afraid of the darkness. She'd found her light in the most unlikely place, and now she was ready to share it with the galaxy. The war for humanity's future was just beginning. And Earth's greatest weapon was a woman who'd learned that sometimes the wrong path leads to exactly the right destination. The end.